I always give thanks to God for all the people in my life and work who have helped me get where I am and keep it up. Also, thanks. Alan Jackson has always had a quiet quality that made him stand out. That unwavering determination, that clear voice, and a strong will to always do things his way. At age 66, he finally talked about something that fans had known for a long time but never fully understood. For years, murmurs went along with his acts. It felt like something was off. His appearance on stage had changed, at first in a small way that only people who had been paying close attention could see. Now Alan has proven what many people had been afraid of behind closed doors. Behind the scenes, there's been a private battle going on, and he's chosen to share it in a very open way. Why did Alan Jackson finally speak up now, after all this time? What is really going on with him? The dream that almost cost everything. Alan Jackson, who became a huge star in country music, wasn't always big in the public eye. He was just a boy from Newnan, Georgia, before he won awards, became famous, and got standing ovations. He was born into a working-class family and was the only boy out of 5 children. Joseph was his dad, Ruth was his mom, and Joseph was a mechanic. Ruth ran the school food as a dietitian. Alan's life was simple, but it was full of love and toughness that made him who he is today. Alan didn't just dream about music this time. He was also in a real-life love story. He met Denise, the woman who would become his wife, at the neighborhood Dairy Queen when they were both teenagers. Denise didn't give him the time of day right away back then. Alan had to keep after her for years before she finally gave up. But once she did, everything made sense. While riding in Alan's Thunderbird Roadster one day, they fell in love in a way that didn't end. In December 1979, they got married. Still just 2 kids with big hopes. Alan was thinking about Nashville and music. He and Denise left Georgia behind and packed up. It wasn't even close to being exciting. They both worked hard just to stay alive. Alan had a job in the mail room. That's what Denise did for a living. There wasn't much money, but faith was strong. He even gave up his car so they could buy their first home. That's how much he believed this dream. Then something unexpected happened. Denise saw country star Glen Campbell at the airport one day. She didn't think twice. She went up to him and told him he should listen to her husband's music. Glen gave her his business card, so she must have struck a chord with him in some way. Alan had been trying to get in for years, but that one brave move let him in. Alan wasn't just a guy in a mail room in 1990. Over 2 million records of his first album, Here in the Real World, were sold right away. It was a change in country music. It brought back a more classic sound at a time when pop music was taking over. People like Randy Travis and Garth Brooks were part of a wave that brought heart and roots back to the genre. Alan's family was also getting bigger at the same time. It was the same year that his first record came out. He and Denise had a daughter named Maddie. After that, Alexandra and Danny Grace showed up. Everything looked great. His job was going great, and he had a brand new mansion to show for it. It didn't look like everything was going well, though. Their marriage was put under a lot of stress because of their fame. That's what Alan and Denise did. Alan said it wasn't easy because he was used to doing things by himself, but they got through it and even renewed their vows to start over. Still, life had more tests in store. There were reports that Alan had been cheating on his wife as his career took off. The same couple who fell in love over milkshakes and rides were now having a hard time holding on. Denise had always thought it would be exciting to be on the road with her husband. But instead, it was sad and lonely. Years later, she told him that she had made up this dream of being the perfect star's wife, but that it wasn't at all what she had hoped for. They broke up in 1997 because the pain was too great. Alan told Denise that they might not be able to fix it after 18 years. He thought they both deserved more. Denise was devastated when they broke up and left her to care for their 3 daughters by herself. She was depressed and tried to figure out what was going on. Denise Jackson went through more than just sadness after she and Alan Jackson broke up because he cheated on her. She became more pious. That moment changed her whole life. It helped her forgive Alan even though it hurt. They were apart for 4 months while each tried to heal in their own way. But in the end, they got back together and chose to try marriage again. You'd think that after that kind of storm, things would finally get better for them. But life had one more surprise in store. It was their anniversary in Florida when Denise got a call that changed her whole life. She had cancer of the colon. It came out of nowhere. She was always fit and full of energy, so no one would have thought she would get that kind of news. Anian was right next to her when the call came in. They didn't wait around. Their trip was over quickly, and they went back to Nashville right away to plan the next moves. It all, radiation, treatment, and more. Even though Alan is usually cool and collected, he was shook to his core. He felt the weight of those wedding promises for the first time, for better or worse. Like any good artist, he turned to music to help him deal with everything. A song just came out of him a few weeks after Denise was diagnosed. It was called "When I Saw You Leaving," and the words were honest. Because it hurt so much, he didn't even tell Denise right away. She started crying when she finally heard it. But those tears also had love and comfort in them. She really liked that he could write what was on his heart. That event was another changing point in their lives. They got rid of their house in Florida and now live in Nashville full-time. Denise fought hard. She beat the cancer, thank goodness. The trip did leave its mark, though. She came back stronger, more grounded, and with a clearer sense of what's important. The Quiet Country Rebellion by Alan Jackson. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, country music began to change. A lot of it started to sound more like pop, with smoother music, crossover hooks, and other things like that. A lot of country music fans liked the new wave, but some thought the heart of the music was being lost. It was then that Alan Jackson stepped in. He put out a song called "Murder on Music Row" with George Strait. It was clear they weren't holding back. As the song put it, "Hey, you guys are killing real country music." People paid attention. It's crazy that this song wasn't even put out as a single. There was no radio push or big ad, but it still made a lot of noise. It was the highest charting album cut during the time of broadcast data systems. It wasn't even meant to be a single that made it to the top of the Hot Country Songs and Tracks chart. That beat the record that Gar Brooks had set with Belleau Wood, and a lot of people paid attention. The two were asked to open the 2000 ACM Awards with that song. Even Rolling Stone wrote about it, praising Jackson's honest, emotional performances as different from stars like G's high-energy, fire-filled shows. Tiffany Brooks and Shania Twain. Other artists used lights, outfit changes, and all sorts of other fancy things, but Jackson kept things simple with just himself, his guitar, and the music. Alan Jackson had already had a lot of hits and won a lot of awards by this point. But in 2002, he put out Drive, a record that stood out even more. The Record of the Year award at both the CMA and ACM Awards went to that project. Who Were You When the World Stopped Turning? Was one of the best songs on it. Written after the strikes on September 11, 2001. Jackson didn't mean to be political or too loyal. He only wanted to say how he felt. He almost felt like the song came to him spiritually. He sang it into a recorder in the wee hours of the morning and then went back to sleep. There is no guitar and no overthinking. Just pure feeling poured into a melody. The title track, Drive for Daddy Jean, was another great song on the record. It wasn't just a hit. It was number 1 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs list and number 28 on the Billboard Hot 100. The music video won Video of the Year at the 2002 ACMS. It had both animated and live-action scenes, as well as flashbacks to Jackson's youth. It wasn't just a car song. It was a memorial to his late father, Eugene Jackson. Alan didn't want it to feel like a sad farewell. He wanted to honor the kind of memories that are small but important and stay with you. At his dad's funeral, Alan saw how well-liked and respected his dad was in the neighborhood. He said that he learned more about his dad after he died than when he was still alive. That's what the song says. The words are simple, but they feel very real. He and his friend by an 18-foot-long used boat together in the first line. You can almost picture little Alan riding with his dad to get it. Going down a dusty road with a load is what the second line is about. It's also about that sweet moment when his dad lets him drive. The last line completes the circle. He now has daughters and lets them drive his old Jeep, just like his dad used to do for him. Sad events changed the tune in Alan Jackson's life in 2017 when his mother, Ruth, died. It left a deep void. She was more than just his mom, she was his base. Jackson turned to music, which had always helped him make sense of the world, to deal with his grief. For her funeral, he wrote a song called "Where Her Heart Has Always Been." The song was even more special because it had a recording of Ruth reading from the Bible. That recording was made by his sister months before she died so that the family would have something to remember her by. Afterward, Jackson talked about how grateful he was to have that recording and what it meant to the song. Ruth, who many people called Mama Ruth, was the Jackson family's heart. She ran things as a dietitian and cafeteria manager while also being a wife and having 5 kids. People knew her for her food, especially the pies she made. Alan always made sure behind the scenes that one of her lemon icebox pies was ready for him. That pie made him miss home every time he ate it. Surprisingly, most people liked it, but Merle Haggard didn't. It was Ruth who also pushed Alan to listen to gospel music, which led to the album Precious Memories, which has simple, heartfelt hymns from his Baptist childhood. It was important to him that the songs sound like they did when he sang them in church as a child. He gave his mom that record as a last gift for Christmas, right before she died. That was not the end of heartbreak with him though. Jackson's family went through another terrible event in 2018, just 1 year after his mother died. Ben Seligman, his son-in-law, died when he fell off a boat dock in Jupiter, Florida. Ben was trying to help a woman get on a boat when he slipped and hit his head hard. He was only 28 years old. Ben, whose real name was Samuel Benton Seligman, married Jackson's daughter Maddie just a year before. In October 2017. They met at a friend's wedding and fell in love, but Ben had to beg Maddie many times over the next few years before she accepted to go on a date. He drove almost 4 hours just to have dinner with her, and after that, they couldn't live without each other. The wedding was the cover story of the summer/fall 2018 issue of Southern Bride. After he died, the magazine put online wedding pictures and said they were heartbroken by the news. Glenn Funk, the DA for Davidson County, remembers Ben as a rising star in their office. People looked up to and loved him, and he acted like a real Southern gentleman. Assistant DA Tammy Mead also talked about how Ben made people happy and kind everywhere he went. The office showed how much they cared about him by writing a touching Facebook post in his honor. It's still not clear why Ben was in Florida that day, but Alan Jackson owns land there, so it wasn't unusual for the family to spend time there. Jackson's life has always been about making songs and telling stories. He was putting out hit after hit. But things changed after he lost his mother and his son-in-law. He left the building. The fire that made him want to write and record went out. His last record at the time was Angels and Alcohol, and then there was a long break of 6 years. His live shows kept going, but he just couldn't bring himself to write. He said those losses hurt a lot and that he and his family needed some time to get better. The pandemic threw another wrench in his plans just as he was getting ready to record again after finding his way back. Even so, Jackson didn't let failures stop him. After taking safety measures, he got his team together and went back to the studio, ready to make something new. It led to Where Have You Gone? His music has always been honest and full of deep emotions, and this record is no different. Alan Jackson's Quiet Fight came out. Things went wrong for Alan Jackson just when it looked like he was back on track. The famous country singer told his fans that he had been identified with CMT, which stands for Charcot-Marie Tooth disease. It sounds like a music award name, but it's not. This wasn't just found recently. Jackson had been dealing with the illness for more than 10 years before it became public in 2021. In an interview with Jenna Bush Hager on the Today Show, he said that CMT is a brain disease that runs in families and affects nerves and muscles, making them weak and having trouble keeping their balance. It wasn't deadly, but there was no way to treat it either. Jackson's symptoms started getting in the way of his stage acts, which made things even worse. He had trouble keeping his balance and was afraid that his fans would think he was drunk or sick for some other reason. He chose not to keep quiet any longer and to tell the truth. He mostly told them about the news to explain why his shows might not look the same anymore. He said that the disease was making it harder for him to perform live, and he didn't know how long he'd be able to keep traveling. Even though it was bad news, he made it clear that he was thankful. His life was lovely, and he had a great job. And finally telling her the news made him feel better. He no longer had to hide the changes that were happening to his body. It made him feel better to know that people would understand why he walked or fell on stage the way he did. CMT is a rare and difficult disease that was first found in 1886. It shows up in various ways for each person, based on their unique genes. It's not life-threatening, but it hurts nerves in the long run. Blood tests and keeping an eye on the nervous system are generally how doctors figure it out. Some signs are scoliosis, muscle weakness, defects in the feet, and sometimes even trouble breathing or speaking. Some people with CMT need to wear braces or have surgery on their feet to control their symptoms. Well-known people, like Julie Newmar and Anthony Ramos, have also dealt with the illness. Even though things were hard, Alan Jackson wasn't ready to give up music just yet. His major interests were still writing songs and keeping traditional country music alive. He wanted the music he made to be his legacy, and he was set on performing as long as his body would let him. It was something he had never liked the idea of. He said he'd keep playing whenever he could instead of making a big deal out of leaving. Jackson had been thinking about his life, his family, and his songs during all of this. He put out a sad song called "You'll Always Be My Baby" in April 2021. It showed the love between a father and daughter by showing memories from when the daughter was a baby to when she was an adult. Especially since Jackson had 3 girls with his wife Denise, the song felt very close to home. Both listeners and critics said the words were touching and true, and they said it would be great for a father-daughter dance. It looked like Jackson put a lot of feeling into this new part of his songs. His most recent album, he said, had a more country sound than any of his previous work. He was moved to tears by the final mixes, which were made by his longtime partner Keith Stegall, that he was listening to in his car. Both the music and the memories it brought back seemed to hit him at the same time. It was a sign that his heart was still deeply rooted in the songs he wrote, no matter what was going on in his life. Fans were there for him through it all. After he told people about his illness, he got a lot of messages of love and support. A lot of people praised his guts and honesty. Jackson, for his part, seemed thankful that his viewers still understood and connected with him. He wasn't going to let CMT shut up his voice or stop his journey, even though the road ahead might have more problems. Making music had always been his calling, and he was going to keep following it, one song at a time. He knew it was almost over. He told everyone about his diagnosis less than a year ago, and then he got ready for a national tour he called Last Call. One more for the street. There was more to it than just acting. It was about them. He looked up to stars like Charley Pride, George Jones, Merle Haggard, and Loretta Lynn as a child. Artists who played for as long as they could. He did what he could as long as his health would let him in order to follow in their paths. In true Alan Jackson style, he made sure that $1 from each ticket sold went to the CMT Research Foundation. This way, he could honor his illness while still doing what he loved. Fans got to hear the voice behind "Living on Love" live one more time, at more than a dozen shows across the country. Things began to change in October 2022, though. He wasn't feeling well, so his last 2 shows had to be pushed back. He talked about how much he hated disappointing people and how much he wanted to be on that stage. He never stopped loving music, even after he stopped traveling. He told his daughter Maddie on her show Enjoy Life that he was still writing lyrics, humming melodies, and thinking about what could happen next. He had always seen writing songs as more than just a job. It was hard, and that sparked imagination in a way that acting never could. He said that he probably would have given up singing a long time ago if he hadn't written so many of his own songs. But even though there was still that spark, they had to face the truth about his illness. He has had Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease for a long time, and it won't go away on its own. It gets worse over time, making things harder, like going on stage, playing guitar, and standing in front of people. Along with the promise of new dates, shows in places like Atlantic City and Pittsburgh were cancelled. But there was a quiet understanding behind that hope. There may not be a next round. Things got really important in the middle of all that. The Willie Nelson Lifetime Achievement Award was given to Alan at the 2022 CMA Awards. That moment should have been filled with happiness, a celebration of a great career, but it was instead sad. A few weeks ago, the news was all about how his tour was being cancelled. But when he got up on stage to accept the award, he brought things back to what was important. About his wife, he talked. She had been there for him for decades and was now helping him through the hardest time in his life. He also talked about his first love from the heart. Not a person, but the sound of country music. Then, 2 weeks after getting a standing ovation at the ACM Awards, he made it public. His days of going on tours were over. Country music says goodbye to Alan in a soft way. Fans knew it was going to be a big deal when Alan Jackson came through Milwaukee on his last stop on the road tour. But no one was ready for the emotional bomb he dropped that night. He told everyone on stage at Fiserv Forum that this wasn't just another event. His last show was that night. The mood changed right away. Jackson always kept his cool and was humble. He opened up in a way that only someone who had nothing to prove could. He said that he had been on the road for more than 30 years and had played in small towns, big cities, and even on the planet. Now, though, he said, his heart was pulling him back home. All of his girls were grown up, he had a grandchild already, and another was on the way. He agreed that it was time to be more present. He didn't want to be gone as much and just take it easy. He wasn't touring as much these days anyway, and it was getting harder. He wasn't as healthy as he used to be. He talked about how his legs and arms hurt from the wasting disease he got from his dad and how hard it was for him to move on stage. He loved being on stage with the people, but he didn't want to keep going if he couldn't give it his all. When the crowd heard this honest speech, they cheered, clapped, and gave standing ovations over and over again. That's the thing. Not even Milwaukee was an exception. Since it began in 2022, that tour has been full of sold-out shows that all have the same emotional weight. Every stop was more than just a show. It was a goodbye. Fans were ready. The arena was full of signs. People sang along with every song, and cameras followed Jackson around like he was on a leash. After crossing off each city and state, he met up with the people who had been riding with him for all those years and said goodbye in person. Reviewers on Milwaukee said it was romantic and deeply moving. Com said that the show felt like a salute to the music, the fans, and a history based on being real. In the same way, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel told people how important Jackson had been to country music. He didn't let us down. There were more than 20 songs from all of his albums on the set list. Still, the little treats that made it stand out were the best parts. For example, he dedicated "I'd Love You All Over Again" to his wife who was sitting in the crowd and added a bit of what makes Milwaukee famous after 5 o'clock somewhere. The power inside Fiserv. That night, Forum was so electric it was almost divine. A lot of people, about 14,000, sung along with every song like they knew it from childhood. Jackson thanked everyone for being a part of the trip as he stood on stage and took it all in. He was always thankful, humble, and honest. After the show, he sent his fans a heartfelt message on Instagram. He said it was a blessing to have lived his dream and promised to never forget the people who helped make it happen. His post was filled with love. Fans who had grown up with his songs wrote a lot of comments. For some, seeing him one last time was enough to bring them to tears. But this wasn't just about ending things. This was about a man ending a part of his life in his own way. No matter how hard things got, Jackson didn't let anything stop him from leaving on his own terms. Besides that, he used this last trip to help other people. He is also fighting CMT, and some of the money from the tickets went to study for it. He had raised more than $2.25 million by the end. Still, he told the crowd in Milwaukee, "There's one show left, one last goodbye. They're planning a big ending in Nashville next summer." He said that ending it where it all started felt right. Music City is where country music is made. And for him, it really is all coming full circle. He joined the Grand Ole Opry in 1991, long before he became famous. His first record had just come out at the time. It was a dream come true at that time. Also, it's funny because he used to carry mail there before he sang on that stage. That is as country as it gets. Jackson, who is now 66 years old, says he has no regrets about the trip he took with his wife Denise in a U-Haul from Newnan, Georgia, to Nashville. His father died when he was in his early 70s, and Jackson knows that his health might not allow him to keep going like Merle Haggard or Willie Nelson, two of his musical heroes. That's okay, though. He's done more than most people could ever hope to. He knows what it means to live the American dream. This tour isn't just a farewell to the stage. There will be no more of this age or this man. He stayed true to the roots of country music and left behind a legacy that millions of people will remember. Thanks for seeing it. Please like, subscribe, share, and turn on post notifications if you liked it so you can see our newest posts. Our newest stuff. Our newest stuff.